Time and space, threads of the fabric of reality. We are undefined without them. Yet how does our individual existence become significant and known within them? As conscious functioning beings located in a greater universe, what can we do in our given space, and sometimes more importantly, our given time? How attached to it are we? How do the aspects of my daily life function as a part of these larger concepts? The experience is not a solitary, but one shared by all. As I find myself hurtling towards something I consider to be a major junction in time, I want to find the source and significance of these events in the cosmos, if there is any. This is my search for the answer to these questions of existence and my own reality. I ask the same questions of three friends to help me search for the meaning of time. I hope that these voices blend together to form a singular voice, that of humanity, and a fundamental source of these forces of life, time and space. This is my search. This is my moment in time.
Well, originally in the Western sense, time was conceived of as just a succession of present states. So the past and the future aren't really real. They're only real insofar as they're past states that no longer exist or potential states in the future. And so it was inherently tied to space. Time was nothing other than measurement of space and vice versa, which was kind of, in more recent years in philosophical movements, it's been time and space has been looked at in a more personal way, and how that time and space is important to individual humans. And that's reading it more not so much as a mathematical state. It's not necessarily a scientific question about how time is related to us. It's more about individual context, because time basically, like in our everyday lives, things can seem to go really fast or slow depending on if we're having fun or enjoying it. And so there's a deeply personal element that I think has been at least neglected in mainstream philosophical thought.
It isn't like think of one distance from another, just like how we measure that, how we measure our traveling through space, which would then be what's the definition of space. So time, yeah, I myself would have to just go with that classical definition, because otherwise it's very, very difficult to try to measure something without sort of, you know, I guess taking it out of a context other than what we've always known it as.
Time is something we don't have enough of. That's completely how I feel. I always think of time as something I don't have enough of, something I can never quite grasp, something that's elusive, it passes, and seems to have a great deal of influence on everything, but yet is immaterial and most of the time inconvenient.
An interesting thing about time is that we lose time every night. Every time we go to sleep, we're in a way outside of time. It seems like it happens in an instant. We could start to fall asleep and wake up the next day and be confused. We won't know what time it is. So if you take a nap in the middle of the day, you might not know what time it is when you wake up. And so I think that's interesting that all day we spend trying to take hold of time, trying to, process everything, do homework, do groceries, do laundry, all of this, but we can never get it. And every time we go to sleep, we're going to lose it again. And so I think that's something to be thoughtful of.
It seems like it would be hard to change my perception of time. It seems like my perception of time isn't just a construct of my mind, it's a construct of society. You make appointments for certain times in the day. You have lunch at a certain time every day, and you wake up at a certain time every day. And we have these ideas of rush hour and break time and nap time, and from a very young age you learn that there are certain times for certain things, and I think it would be very hard to operate outside of that understanding.
I think if we were to change our concept of time, that absolutely we would change society and culture. It would have to be impacted in some way because so much does depend on, especially at least in Western culture, deadlines and things like that. But at the same time, that there is a certain order to it. So if there was no real like need of time, then there really wouldn't be a need of much of anything. I guess really existential. But at the same time, it's impossible not to measure time because we have sun and the moon and like those cycles. So there would always be something reminding us, at least, there is some sort of change going on. There's something in our environment is changing, and if we weren't to measure that in passing time, I guess we would just we'd be a lot more laid back. I think a lot more laid back, for better or for worse.
The way we understand time and space is reflected in our actions and in how our society is ordered, really, and the other way around. They kind of it's a feedback system. They gain off of each other. I think the problem is that time and space, we talk about them as if they're personal things, but they're really abstract entities, and so we can't really point to time or point to space. And when you're talking about specifically pragmatic questions or scientific questions about society and how it's going to be affected by thinking about time and space, it's hard to point and say, this is the result or the product of thinking about time and space. But I think it does in different ways it does affect our behavior. I think morally it does, because the way we think about other people in their relation to us, and the way we think, basically the way we use our sense of space, which begins with the body, because we are, enmeshed in space right now, and time. And so the way we start from those principles, we have these assumptions, regardless of if we think about them, but contemplating them and looking at them can lead to at least improving them if we so choose, I think.